Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another quick Star Wars lore video. Today, we'll continue talking about the Xyston class Star Destroyer, and we'll simply try to answer one question. Is it bullshit? I don't mean from a tactical or even aesthetic point of view. I've covered what I deem to be some issues with the ship in prior videos, and Space Doc has also done an entire episode on why destroying planets generally isn't a good idea. However, I'll instead be looking at feasibility. Specifically, whether it's believable that a Xyston could destroy an entire planet. First off, let's look at how the Xyston differs from its more well-known counterpart, the Imperial class Star Destroyer. First of all, the Xyston is significantly larger at 2,400 meters versus 1,600, which actually makes it 1.5 times larger exactly. Well, if you do some rounding. The interesting, which I think is a very charitable word to use in this situation, thing about the Xyston is that it's actually just a regular ISD except for the gun, but scaled up, and it's been scaled up proportionally. So every gun is 1.5 times the size, the tower is 1.5 times the size, and most relevantly for this video, the reactor is also 1.5 times the size. At least externally, but we'll come back to that point. So, the Xyston does not destroy a planet like the Death Star, i.e. with one large concentrated energy blast. Instead, it seems to basically pour firepower into the planet until it just, well, explodes. I can imagine perhaps it's boring down to the interior of the planet, then because of energy or space magic or whatever, the planet just explodes. And if you watch the scene, there are a few key takeaways. Like I said, the ship continually fires on a single point. The beam also pulsates. It seems like power is continually flowing through it, perhaps like a sustained turbo laser barrage. Initially, the damage is actually limited mostly to the point of contact, and then finally the planet almost implodes. Again, it seems like it's breaking through the surface, destroying the planet's interior, and then causing, well, a cataclysm of some sort. I don't know the physics here. It's Star Wars. What I'm mostly concerned about is whether there's internal consistency within the universe. Let's talk about the Xyston a bit more now that we know how the weapon operates. Presumably, Wellan Exegol, Palpatine, and the Sith Eternal have been making some progress, and their capital ships are most likely more powerful than those used by the Empire 30 years earlier. That being said, the Xyston actually generates power the same way that an ISD does, and the main difference, other than the size of the reactor, seems to be that the gun itself feeds directly into the ship's energy source. So, if you thought that the regular Imperial Star Destroyer was already a ridiculously offensive-minded capital ship, this basically takes that to the next level. The superlaser basically allows all of the ship's potential to be harnessed by a single weapon while bypassing all other systems. I actually find this to be a somewhat interesting take on the superlaser because most Star Wars superweapons instead just go for extreme amounts of power rather than power focused in a very efficient way. But let's get to the point of this video. Now that we know exactly how the ship operates, that the gun is tied directly to the power generator, that sustained bursts basically burrow their way into the planet and destroy it from the inside, is there enough credibility for the ship not to be completely bullshit? I think maybe. We have to consider the fact that the Xyston is 1.5 times larger than a standard ISD. It's very possible that the ship not only has a larger generator bulb on the outside, but perhaps more of the interior is dedicated as well to power generation, and presumably there have been some technical upgrades in the past 30 years. I guess the question you have to imagine is this. Imagine 2 or 3 Star Destroyers, given the Xyston's larger size and the technological upgrades, point themselves at a planet and somehow manage to fire all of their turbo lasers at a single point for a sustained barrage. Could they do enough damage to burrow into the planet and compromise its integrity? Personally, I don't think the answer to that is clearly yes, but I think it's at the very least feasible, which to be honest I found a bit surprising, because when I started writing this video, I was pretty much ready to just write off the Xyston as complete bull. The main problem here is that the Xyston relies on the Star Destroyer to justify its power, and the feats of the ISD are inconsistent at best. We have everything from the firebombing of Kamos and other base Delta Zeros, which paint the ISD as being extremely powerful, at least in Star Wars Legends. However, most time in both canon and the old EU, when we see a Star Destroyer bomb something from orbit, the damage is, I think, unimpressive. I mean, even in A New Hope, Han says that the entire Imperial fleet couldn't destroy a planet. However, it is hard to rely on that quote just because of how early on it came in the Star Wars mythos. There are a couple of factors that I'd want the Xyston to possess for it not to be complete BS. First of all, the superlaser should take some time to destroy a planet, and during the process, all other functions of the ship, save basic systems, should be turned off, essentially representing that all of the ship's power is being funneled into the weapon. Secondly, I don't think the ship should be able to immediately pass through planetary shields, or even the shields of a star cruiser. I mean, it makes sense that Kajimi wouldn't have a planetary shield, but I want the gun to reflect the fact that it's essentially piercing to a vulnerable part of the planet and causing major structural damage, not just throwing a lot of energy at something. That being said, either way, I do think the Xyston gives Star Wars a bit more credibility when being compared to other universes, at least in terms of energy production. So what I'm saying is that J.J. Abrams probably just made the ship because he was getting in a bunch of online debates about Star Wars that he wanted to win. All in all, I think having Star Destroyer-sized ships with super lasers is pretty stupid, and I quite dislike the Xyston. I think it's a lazy ship. However, I do think the super laser is interesting, and it possibly works within the current framework of canon, which is more than I expected going into this video. However, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Is the Xyston complete BS? Does it work? Do you like super lasers? Let me know all of that and more down below. Today's hashtag Ask question of the day comes from Sir Breakfast, who asks, do the Mon Calamari have their own starfighters? They can't just send in their own cruisers in a space battle if they are by themselves. So we hear a lot during the Legends timeline about how the Mon Calamari are producing starfighters for the Alliance, but it seems like the majority of the time they were just building existing designs, so building X-Wings, Y-Wings, B-Wings, whatever. I mean, the B-Wing itself was also partially designed by Admiral Akbar, so I'm sure the Mon Calamari did have some of their own specialized designs, but we haven't learned a whole lot about it. I also kind of remember something, I think during one of the Legacy of the Force books, about there being a Mon Calamari heavy fighter, but I did a quick check on Wikipedia and I couldn't find anything about it. But either way, it seems like the Mon Cals built both pre-existing designs and, to a lesser extent, some of their own models.